75 years ago, this past May, just before Shabbat began, on May 14th, 1948, just hours before the British mandate in Palestine came to an end, David Ben-Gurion, then the chairman of the Jewish People's Council, who later became the first prime minister of Israel, stood before the assembly of the council gathered at the Tel Aviv Museum of Art and broadcast live on the airwaves of the new Kol Yisrael radio station to declare the independence of the modern state of Israel. In honor of Israel's 75th birthday and this complicated moment in her history, the clergy thought we'd spend some time taking a close look at the declaration of the establishment of the State of Israel, which served then and continues to serve as an aspirational document upon which the government of the modern State of Israel is based. First, here's a taste of that moment from May 14th, 1948.
אקריא לפניכם את מגילת היסוד של מדינת ישראל, אשר אושרה בקריאה ראשונה על ידי מועצת העם. בארץ ישראל קם העם היהודי, בה עוצבה דמותו הרוחנית, הדתית והמדינית, בה חי חיי קוממיות ממלכתית, בה יצר נכסי תרבות לאומיים וכלל אנושיים.
You can hear David Ben-Gurion's Hebrew, tinged with the remnants of his Polish accent, even after over 40 years in British Palestine. And the formal Hebrew used here is a reminder of just how young modern Hebrew was in 1948, still pulling heavily from the language of the prayer book. It begins, Be'eretz Yisrael kam ha'am ha'yehudi. Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, was the birthplace of the Jewish people. Here their spiritual, religious, and political identity was shaped. Here they first attained statehood, created cultural values of national and universal significance, and gave to the world the eternal book of books. After being forcibly exiled from their land, the people kept faith with it throughout their dispersion and never ceased to pray and hope for their return to it and for the restoration in it of their political freedom. The text begins with our beginnings as a people with a unique identity that was forged out of the unique way we understood our relationship with the world beyond us, represented by God, the land in which we lived, Israel, and the rules of engaging with this place and this world, the Torah. This place, Israel, was the place where we developed, nurtured, explored, and expanded our understanding of ourselves as a people, where we trace our spiritual beginnings and a symbol of the promise made between God and Abraham when God called to him, Lech lecha, go forth to a land that I will show you. For 2,000 years, following the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem, Israel became embedded in the Jewish psyche as the symbol and focal point of our highest aspirations, not only a longing for a return to the physical land, carrying with us the memory of Jewish sovereignty and self-determination, but an eternal yearning for the hope of peace and redemption of the Messianic age, symbolized by a return to Israel. Israel isn't just a place in the Jewish mind. It's a way of being, a state of mind, a reminder that we are a people committed to hope, with an abiding faith that God will not forget about us and will bring us back to our promised land. In the Psalms we read, if I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand wither. At the end of our Passover Seder, we sing L'Shana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. And every time a Jew prays, we face east, focusing our hearts and minds towards Jerusalem. The opening lines of Israel's Declaration of Independence capture both the deep historical ties to this land, but more than that, they capture the ages-old spiritual longing embodied by the land of Israel. But what they don't resolve is the tension between Eretz Yisrael, that is, the biblical notion of the land of Israel, as a symbol of the covenant between God and the Jewish people, and Medinat Yisrael, the modern state of Israel and her government. At the center of the modern state of Israel is also an ancient tension with the historic spiritual land of Israel, and the constant push and pull of that longing hope and the challenges of daily life in a modern, complex country. But again and again, we come back to hope as we sing in Hatikva, Israel's national anthem, Od lo avda tikvatenu, Hatikva bat shnot alpayim, lihiot am chovshi be'artzenu, be'eretz Tzion v'Yerushalayim. Our hope is not yet lost, the hope of 2,000 years, to be a free people in our land, the land of Zion and Jerusalem.
The declaration continues. In the year 5657, 1897, at the summons of the spiritual father of the Jewish state, Theodor Herzl, the first Zionist Congress convened and proclaimed the right of the Jewish people to national rebirth in its own country. Theodor Herzl was an Austro-Hungarian journalist and political activist. He witnessed growing anti-Semitism in Europe during the late 19th century and concluded, anti-Semitism has grown and continues to grow, and so do I. He concluded that the only solution was to found a Jewish state, a safe haven for Jews. Less than 50 years later, Herzl was proven tragically prescient, as millions of European Jews had nowhere to go to escape the Nazis. Countries, including the United States, stood by offering words of sympathy for the plight of the Jews while keeping their borders shut, or almost shut, to Jewish refugees. That's why Israel's Declaration of Independence affirms that the catastrophe which recently befell the Jewish people, the massacre of millions of Jews in Europe, was another clear demonstration of the urgency of solving the problem of its homelessness by reestablishing in Eretz Yisrael the Jewish state, which would open the gates of the homeland wide to every Jew. Israel was founded to be a sanctuary for the Jewish people, a place where Jews can count on finding safety, dignity, and freedom. And since the founding of the state, millions of Jews from Europe, from Middle Eastern countries, from the Soviet Union, from Ethiopia, have made use of that sanctuary, escaping persecution and making their home in their historic homeland. And for the past 75 years, many more of the world's Jews, while not making Aliyah themselves, have been comforted by the fact that Israel is there for us. Anti-Semitism, as Herzl said over 100 years ago, continues to grow. We know this to be true. If, God forbid, anti-Semitism makes it too dangerous to stay where we are, Israel has always been our escape plan. But ask yourselves, and then ask other American and diaspora Jews today, whether you would consider moving to Israel. Do you, as a non-Orthodox Jew, you as a woman or a person of color or a member of the LGBTQ community, do you see Israel as a place where you can live in safety, dignity, and freedom? It's not enough to be a place open to the immigration of all Jews. To be our sanctuary means that Israel is a place where we can not only live, but where we can make a life, free from physical danger and persecution, and also free from the spiritual dangers of occupation and tyranny. Only when all of its inhabitants can thrive will Israel fulfill the promise of its founders, to be the safe haven and true home of the Jewish people.
I visited Israel for the first time on a group trip when I was 16. The first Friday afternoon of the trip, I had some free time before Shabbat, so I walked up the street to buy a falafel. The woman working at the falafel stand put everything together, handed me my sandwich, and then did something that blew my mind. She said, "Shabbat Shalom." In that one moment, I understood what it meant to really feel at home. I've been back to Israel countless times since then, and I always marvel at that feeling of belonging. Even amidst all of the traffic, the honking horns, and the arguing, I feel somehow lighter. I know I have a place. I am accepted, and I belong. So I keep going back. I have fallen in love with the Hebrew language, her poetry, music, and dance, with the food, the art, and the people. With each trip, I broaden my awareness and see different facets of the complex enterprise we call Israel, the good and the bad. And each time I return, I feel that same sense of homecoming. On this eve of the new year, the rabbis and I are recalling sections of the Israeli Declaration of Independence. The next section states, "The state of Israel will be open for Jewish immigration and for the ingathering of the exiles. It will foster the development of the country for the benefit of all its inhabitants. It will be based on freedom, justice, and peace as envisioned by the prophets of Israel. It will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. It will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture. It will safeguard the holy places of all religions, and it will be faithful to the principles of the Charter of the United Nations." What a profoundly hopeful and idealistic statement they make at the founding of this nation. Is it realistic? Is it even possible? I spend a lot of my time here at Beth Am working with B'nai Mitzvah kids, and I have a spiel that I use to teach the kids and their parents about their tzedakah project. So apologies if you've heard this before. I hold up a snow globe that I have on my desk, and I tell the kids that when we are very young, our parents present us with a perfect view of the world, one that resembles a snow globe. And that's how it is for us as really young kids. So the rabbis of old noticed something wonderful happening to a person of your age. The vision of a perfect world that our parents create for us begins to fade, and the truth of the world comes into focus. We begin to see the brokenness and the cracks, and along with this new worldview, a fire develops inside of us that moves us to want to do something about it. That inner fire to take part in fixing the world is what we celebrate when you become a bat mitzvah. And we hope that performing acts of tzedakah will be central to who you are as a person and as a Jewish adult. This teaching can be extended to describe our understanding of Israel. Many of us see Israel as a snow globe, perfect and unblemished. But as we engage more, the cracks and brokenness begin to show themselves. Indeed, Israel today is broken in so many ways, and her democracy itself is hanging by a thread. But we should not be discouraged by recognizing Israel's cracks. We should be hopeful. We should be proud of the fire inside of us that leads us to be part of the solution to fix that brokenness. From the Declaration of Independence again, the state of Israel will be based on freedom, justice, and peace. It will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. This is the Israel I love. An Israel that upholds democracy and equality and upholds our Jewish values. I believe that this Israel still exists, even as it becomes obscured by the current government's desire to abandon Israel's democracy through weakening the Supreme Court. I am not alone in this belief. Since January, hundreds of thousands of protesters have joined together in the streets of Israel, waving Israeli flags, fighting for democracy. They haven't stopped. It's been over 8 months, and the protests continue. We know that this Israel exists. All it takes is one visit, and you will see proof of it in the cultural diversity, hospitality, ingenuity, and bravery of her people. Rabbi Rick Jacobs, addressing the Knesset this year, referred to the poem In the Old City by Yehuda Amichai. In it, he says that as a people, we are neguei tikva, infected with hope. Jacobs continues, "Indeed, we have a sense that there is some better way for us to be. We are not naive by being hopeful. Rather, hope is a commitment that the world as we see it and as we live in it is not the only one. It is a world we can shape for the Jewish people, for the Jewish state, and for all the world. We are negu'ei tikva, infected with hope. Let us not be silent. Let us not be inactive. Let us not let the wheels of this government roll over the Jewish people. We have a role. We have a responsibility. Let us do the right thing." May this be a year of deeper engagement with Israel for all of us. May we continue to strive for the Eretz Yisrael that is described in this founding document, an Israel where all the inhabitants can live in freedom and peace. L'shana tova tikatevu, I wish you a happy, healthy, and sweet new year.
We appeal to the Jewish people throughout the diaspora to rally around the Jews of Eretz Yisrael in the task of immigration and upbuilding, and to stand by them in the great struggle for the realization of the age-old dream, the redemption of Israel. The final appeal of the Declaration of Independence focuses on diaspora Jews living far from Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, and 75 years later, they're actually pointed right at us. Building a personal connection with the land of Israel for Jews living outside of the land is a commandment dating back to biblical times. Rashi, the medieval French commentator, notes in his commentary on the book of Exodus, "We should not consider the land as part of an inheritance from the patriarchs. Rather, we should consider the land as being directly given from God to each of us today." According to Rashi, Israel is not an inheritance like an estate, which may be valuable but not sacred. Rather, Rashi emphasizes that God gives the land to each of us at this very moment, and therefore it is incumbent on each individual to connect to the land today. As diaspora Jews, this is a difficult task, to feel that we are connected to this strange, faraway land, connected to a place that doesn't always uphold our values in its treatment of Palestinians or LGBTQ citizens or Reform Jews. Yet knowing that we still have the responsibility to connect. It's a challenge to embrace the words of Ben-Gurion, believing that Israel is our lifeblood, our inheritance, yet firmly maintaining that diaspora Judaism is bold and vibrant and has much to offer the world. We know that most of Jewish history has happened outside of the land. We receive the Torah outside of the land. As a people, we've used text and festivals and Shabbat to enable us to survive for millennia in exile. We believe Am Yisrael, the people of Israel, exists without a nation state, and we know that the strong diaspora Jewry is good for the Jews. Many of us can imagine no safer place to prosper and thrive than the United States. We are diaspora Jews. We love Israel. So what do we do? Because I worry about American Jews and their connection to Israel. I worry about alienation from the land of Israel and the broader idea of Jewish peoplehood, the notion that all Jews are obligated to one another despite our many differences. I worry that the understandable reaction to this horrible government and to cruel occupation too easily shifts to detachment and indifference to the Jewish homeland. The Israel I love has nothing to do with political analysis or the media. I know the country I love has major flaws and warts. The last few months have been extremely difficult, but it's mine, it's ours, and it's an essential part of us as Jews. I know as a community we have different visions of Israel, different visions of how to bring peace and what the Jewish state should be. And if you're hesitant or ambivalent, no problem. I want you to engage too. Questions, discomfort, a quest to learn more, these are good qualities in the Jewish spirit and the Israel conversation. But here's the message this Rosh Hashanah. care. The Jewish people need you. For those of you who are not Jewish or have converted to Judaism in recent years or feel you are on the periphery of Israeli engagement, we especially need you to engage with Israel too. Please don't feel intimidated by others who might read more articles or have visited more recently or who might shout louder. Israel is yours too. It's given to you as part of your connection to our people. Claim it. Upset with the current state of Israel? Don't walk away. We need you more than ever. There are many different ways. Give to an Israeli organization that reflects your values. Maybe Iraq, the Israeli Religious Action Center, who fights for religious freedom and pluralism in Israel. We're supporting them as a community this month. Or maybe give to the Jerusalem Open House, one of the leading LGBT rights groups in Israel. Take a Hebrew class, watch an Israeli movie, read a book in Hebrew, or if that's hard, read the translation. Cook an Israeli dish, attend one of the many protest rallies protesting this current government, including one in this area on Monday. I've been to many over the past few months, and it's always great to run into Beth Am members there. And finally, visit. There's no better way to truly feel that connection than to go. I strongly believe that every Jew needs to visit Israel at least once in his or her life. This year, we are sponsoring 2 Israel trips, one in the spring for adults and one in July specifically for families. Sign up, meet new people, engage in the sacred act of being in the land of Israel. There is nothing more formative in shaping one's own Jewish identity than spending time in Israel. So 75 years in Israel. What an accomplishment. Let's see the country as part of our inheritance. The word Israel means God wrestlers. Well, this evening, welcome to our season of wrestling. Care, engage, visit for the sake of our community, for the sake of our souls, and the sake of Jerusalem. If you're able, I invite you to rise. Page 274, our prayer for the state of Israel. Avinu shebashamayim, sur Yisrael begoalo. Read with me. Avinu, you are who are high above all nation states and peoples. Rock of Israel, the one who has saved us and preserved us in life. Bless the state of Israel, first flowering of our redemption. Be her loving shield, a shelter of lasting peace. Guide her leaders and advisors by your light of truth. Instruct them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who build and protect our holy land. Deliver them from danger. Crown their efforts with success. Grant peace to the land, lasting joy to all of her people. And together we say, Amen. Be seated.